At Thanksgiving dinner, my mother-in-law announced, "Your cooking is so terrible. You could burn water." The entire family erupted in laughter while my husband pretended to scroll through his phone. They decided to abandon my meal and parade to an upscale restaurant downtown to avoid food poisoning. What they didn't know, that glittering name on the sign, Brass Finch, was my property. Tonight, the bill, the rules, and the truth were all mine to control. My name is Ava Carter, and I've been preparing for this Thanksgiving dinner since 5:30 this morning. The heritage turkey had been brining for 48 hours. The cranberry compote simmered with Grand Marnier and orange zest, and my sourdough stuffing featured wild mushrooms I'd personally foraged from the Riverton woods last weekend. Everything was farm to table, locally sourced, and prepared with techniques I'd perfected over 15 years in professional kitchens. By noon, my kitchen smelled like heaven. By 2 o'clock, it felt like hell was about to break loose. "Interesting choice of herbs," my mother-in-law Marjorie said, lifting the lid of my Dutch oven without asking. She wrinkled her nose as if she'd discovered roadkill. "Very experimental." I watched her manicured fingers hover over my knife collection, her lips pursing at my Japanese steel blades. "These look expensive. Shame when people invest in equipment instead of skill." My husband Liam stood by the window, suddenly fascinated by our neighbor's fence. His younger sister Tessa was already snapping photos of my spread, no doubt adding snarky captions for her Instagram stories. Uncle Ray had his phone propped up, live streaming to his 12 followers, narrating like he was covering a disaster zone. "You know," Marjorie continued, adjusting her pearl necklace, "the Brass Finch downtown is offering a special Thanksgiving menu. James Henderson, you know, from the country club, says their new chef is extraordinary." "Classically trained in France." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. The Brass Finch's chef trained in Newark, not Nice, and I should know I hired Marco myself 3 years ago. "Mom, please," Liam finally muttered, though his eyes never left the window. "What, I'm trying to help. No one should suffer through a meal just to be polite." Marjorie pulled out her phone. "Look, they still have availability. Proper dining room, professional service, food that won't send us to urgent care." My sister-in-law Nora laughed, her voice carrying from the living room where she was supervising her twins destroying my coffee table arrangement. "Remember last Easter? The lamb was so tough, my jaw hurt for a week. That lamb had been perfectly medium rare with a rosemary crust that would have made Gordon Ramsay weep. But Nora had insisted on microwaving her portion for 3 minutes because she didn't trust pink meat. I excused myself to check my phone in the powder room. The family group chat was already buzzing. Screenshots of my dining table with crying, laughing emojis. A close-up of my appetizer plate captioned "Pinterest fail." Marjorie had even started a poll, Brass Finch or food poisoning. 32 votes for Brass Finch, 0 for my home. Standing in my bathroom, staring at my reflection, I saw a woman who'd spent 5 years being diminished, dismissed, and disrespected. They saw Liam's wife who played at cooking. They didn't see the James Beard nominee. They didn't see the owner of 3 restaurants generating $8 million in annual revenue. They certainly didn't see the woman who'd built North Coast Hospitality Group from scratch, keeping her ownership hidden behind Seaside Birch LLC. My phone buzzed. Another message in the group chat. Marjorie had made a reservation at Brass Finch for 7:30. "Table for 12, under Carter," she'd written. "Don't worry, Ava, you can still come. They serve excellent bread." I walked back into my kitchen where Marjorie was already covering my dishes with aluminum foil. "No point letting it sit out," she said. "Maybe you can freeze it for practice." That's when I decided 5 years of silent dignity had earned me nothing but more disrespect. Tonight, they wanted to eat at Brass Finch perfect. I smiled, the kind of smile I reserved for difficult vendors and health inspectors. "You know what, Marjorie? You're absolutely right. Let's go to Brass Finch." The humiliation wasn't new. It had been building since the day I married Liam 5 years ago, our first Thanksgiving as a married couple. I'd spent 3 days preparing a menu inspired by my grandmother's recipes with modern techniques I'd learned at culinary school. Marjorie had taken one bite of my butternut squash soup and asked if I'd forgotten the seasoning. She then produced a can of Campbell's from her purse. She'd brought it just in case, and heated it up in my kitchen while explaining to everyone how some people just aren't born with the cooking gene. Christmas that year was worse. I'd made beef Wellington, each portion perfectly wrapped in golden pastry. Marjorie cut into hers, declared the meat still mooing, and ordered pizza for everyone. The Wellington was cooked to a perfect medium rare, but she announced to the room that I was trying to poison the family with raw meat. The pizza boxes sat on my grandmother's china like a monument to my failure. By the second year, they'd stopped pretending to try my food. Marjorie would call ahead to check what I was attempting and arrive with backup meals from Boston Market. She'd pat my hand and say, "It's sweet that you try, dear, but not everyone can be Julia Child." The financial dynamics made everything worse. The Carters loved money talking about it, showing it, using it as a measuring stick for human worth. Marjorie's favorite topic was her successful realtor business and how she'd built an empire from nothing. Liam's father, before he passed, had been a hedge fund manager. Every family gathering included lengthy discussions about portfolios, property values, and profit margins. "Ava's little cooking hobby is adorable," Marjorie would tell her country club friends when I catered their charity events for free. "Though honestly, she should focus on giving me grandchildren. That's a woman's real purpose." They had no idea about North Coast Hospitality Group. 3 years ago, I'd liquidated my grandmother's inheritance, a modest sum by Carter standards, and partnered with a silent investor I'd met through culinary circles. We formed Seaside Birch, LLC, a holding company specifically structured to keep my name off public records. Through Seaside Birch, I'd acquired a failing restaurant in downtown Riverton, gutted it, and transformed it into Brass Finch. Within 18 months, Brass Finch had a 3-month wait for weekend reservations. Food and Wine called it New England's best-kept secret. The Times gave us a glowing review that Marjorie had actually read aloud at Easter dinner, never knowing she was praising her daughter-in-law's vision. We expanded, a second location in Portsmouth, a boutique catering division, a ghost kitchen operation that supplied half the artisanal meal services in the greater Riverton area. My accountant jokes that I probably feed the Carters 3 times a week through various channels. They just don't know it. I kept it secret partly for business reasons. The industry is brutal to women, especially young women with money. But mostly, I kept it secret because I was waiting for the right moment to reveal that while they were mocking my Pinterest failures, I was building something they could never diminish. Liam knew about the restaurants. Of course. He'd signed a prenup that kept our finances separate, which his mother had actually insisted on to protect the Carter assets from gold diggers. He'd promised to keep my business private until I was ready, but his silence went beyond discretion. When his family mocked me, he said nothing. When they dismissed my career, he changed the subject. His complicity hurt more than their cruelty. Standing in my kitchen that Thanksgiving afternoon, watching them abandon my meal like it was radioactive waste, I realized this wasn't about food. It never had been. It was about power, control, and their need to feel superior. They needed me to be less than them, less successful, less capable, less worthy. Tonight, at Brass Finch, they were about to learn exactly how wrong they'd been. "Is this supposed to be edible?" Marjorie held up a forkful of my sweet potato soufflé, examining it like a specimen in a lab. "The color is so aggressive. Did you follow a real recipe or just experiment again?" The entire family had gathered around my dining room table for what I'd foolishly hoped would be a peaceful Thanksgiving. Instead, it had become a public tribunal on my culinary failures. "I saw this thing on TikTok," Tessa chimed in, waving her phone. "They call it struggle meals when people try to cook fancy but don't have the skills. This totally qualifies." She snapped another photo of my turkey, angling for the least flattering light. "The knife work on these vegetables," Marjorie continued, poking at my root vegetable medley. "So uneven. You can get pre-cut vegetables at Whole Foods. You know, There's no shame in admitting you need help. Uncle Ray zoomed his phone camera onto my gravy boat. Folks, we got something here that looks like, well, I can't say on a family stream, but it ain't gravy. His viewers posted laughing emojis that floated across his screen. Mom, stop, Liam said weakly, but he was already pushing his plate away. The universal gesture of surrender. Marjorie stood up. Decision made. That's it. I'm not subjecting anyone to this health hazard. We're going to Brass Finch. She pulled out her phone with theatrical flair. 7:30 reservation, already confirmed. They'll serve us real food, prepared by real chefs who went to real culinary schools. Not some YouTube cooking course, Nora added, already gathering her twins' coats. I took classes at the Culinary Institute of America, I said quietly. Marjorie waved dismissively. Weekend workshops don't count. Dear, I'm talking about proper training. The chef at Brass Finch studied in Paris. He understands classical techniques, proper presentation, the art of fine dining. I bit back a laugh. Marco had learned to cook in his grandmother's Newark kitchen, then worked his way up through Jersey diners before I hired him. His French training consisted of a 2-week stage in Lyon that he'd hated every minute of. This is for your own good, Marjorie continued, now addressing the room like she was leading an intervention. Ava needs to understand her limitations. Not everyone can cook. It's not a failure, it's just reality. Some people are meant to create, others are meant to appreciate or order takeout. Tessa giggled, already posting her story with Thanksgiving fail. Saved by Brass Finch. Sorry, not sorry. They filed out of my dining room like evacuees from a disaster zone. Marjorie actually held her breath as she passed the kitchen, as if my cooking might be airborne. Uncle Ray provided commentary. The family is evacuating the premises, seeking edible food elsewhere. Will they survive? Stay tuned. Pack it up, Marjorie instructed me, gesturing at the table. Maybe you can donate it to, well, someone less particular about food safety. Liam finally looked at me, something flickering in his eyes. Guilt, maybe, or just embarrassment. Just let it go. Ava, come with us. Mom's paying. How generous, I replied, my voice steady as granite. See, she's learning, Marjorie announced to the room. Acceptance is the first step. Maybe now she'll stop wasting money on those expensive ingredients she doesn't know how to use. They were all heading to the door, chattering about Brass Finch's famous butter service, their award-winning wine list, the proper way food should be prepared and presented. Not one of them looked back at the table where my food sat abandoned, beautiful, delicious, and completely dismissed. 10 minutes to fix your face, Marjorie called back to me. And maybe change into something nicer. Brass Finch has standards. The door closed behind them, leaving me alone in my dining room. I looked at the feast they'd rejected thousands of dollars worth of pristine ingredients, hours of preparation, techniques I'd perfected over years of training, all dismissed because Marjorie needed me to be beneath her. I picked up my phone and started typing, Elise, Carter party arriving at 7:30. Full activation of personal event protocols. Have Marco prep the tasting menu. Jordan brief the service team and pull the ownership documents from the safe. Tonight, we educate. Then I walked upstairs to change, selecting my favorite black dress and the diamond earrings I'd bought myself when Brass Finch turned its first profit. If they wanted dinner and a show, I'd give them one they'd never forget. The moment my family's car pulled away, I transformed from wounded daughter-in-law to CEO. My phone became Command Central. Elise, it's Ava. We have a situation requiring full protocol implementation. My general manager's sharp intake of breath told me she understood immediately. The Carter party. 7:30 reservation, 12 people. They're my husband's family, and they've just spent an hour destroying me on social media while mocking my cooking. They have no idea I own Brass Finch. Oh, this is delicious, Elise said. What level of revelation are we orchestrating? Complete transparency with legal backing. Pull the LLC documents, trademark registrations, and executive authority papers from the safe. Place them in a leather portfolio. Have Jesse witness stamp them by 7:15. Consider it done. What about service protocols? Standard excellence until they violate policy, which they will. Marjorie Carter doesn't believe in boundaries. When she crosses the line, implement zero-tolerance procedures. Document everything. My next call was to Marco. Chef, the 7:30-12 top is a special situation. The owner's family who doesn't know she's the owner? He'd been waiting 3 years for this moment. Exactly. Run the full tasting menu, your choice of courses. Bill, everything separately: appetizers, wine pairings, supplements. When they complain about portion sizes, offer the upgrades. Every single one. With pleasure. Should I include the gold leaf dessert? Especially the gold leaf dessert. Jordan, my service director, answered on the first ring. I heard we have VIP assholes tonight. My mother-in-law specifically. She'll demand off-menu modifications, insult the staff's intelligence, and film everything without permission. Brief the team perfect service, stone-faced professionalism, and the moment she violates our photography or harassment policies, you know what to do. Security cameras on their table. Every angle, audio too. Legal protection for the staff is paramount. I opened my laptop and accessed our internal systems. The Brass Finch Employee Handbook, Section 47, Customer Conduct Standards. I updated the evening briefing notes. Team tonight's Carter party requires special attention. They may exhibit hostile behavior toward staff. Remember: 1. You are protected by company policy. 2. Document all inappropriate interactions. 3. No staff member should tolerate abuse. 4. Management will support you completely. Any customer violating our zero-tolerance harassment policy forfeits service privileges. Period. Then I crafted an email to our legal counsel. Keith, need you on standby tonight. Potential hostile customer situation involving ownership revelation. All documentation current. Confirm LLC authority to refuse service and enforce premises regulations. His response was immediate. All papers current. You have full authority as managing member of Seaside Birch LLC. Security footage admissible if needed. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. I called accounting next. Pull up our charity partnerships. I want the Riverton Culinary Arts Scholarship Foundation ready to receive a donation tonight. Prepare a transfer template for, let's say, $20,000. I'll confirm the exact amount later. $20,000? That's generous. It'll be poetic justice. Trust me. My phone buzzed with a text from Elise. Private dining room wine vault prepared as requested. Clear sight lines to main dining room. Documents and portfolio on side table. Jerome from security is on shift. Briefed on situation. I surveyed my closet, selecting carefully. Not the black dress too obvious. Instead, I chose a burgundy sheath that meant business, paired with the Louboutins I'd bought when we got our first Michelin recognition. Simple diamond studs, the Cartier watch that had been my gift to myself when we hit $5 million in revenue. Another text, this time from Marco, menu locked. Starting with oysters, they'll complain about safety. Then foie gras, they'll call it cruel. Then the deconstructed Caesar, they'll say it's pretentious. Main course duck breast, pink center, they'll demand well done. That's when we implement. Perfect. And Marco, when Marjorie asks to speak to the chef, tell her you're busy but the owner is available. With absolute pleasure, boss. I did my makeup with surgical precision. This wasn't about looking pretty for a family dinner. This was war paint for a CEO about to teach a lesson in respect consequences and the price of underestimating someone you never bothered to truly know. My final call was to building maintenance. Tony, make sure the spotlight in the wine vault is working, the one that pins on the portfolio table. I need it ready by 8:30. You finally telling them they're about to learn that the restaurant they worship has been feeding them crow all along. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and my confidence. The drive to Brass Finch would take 20 minutes. They'd arrive feeling superior, ready to show me what real food looked like. They had no idea they were walking into my house, under my rules, about to learn exactly who they'd been dismissing all these years. The Carter convoy arrived at Brass Finch in 2 SUVs, treating the valet station like a red carpet event. Marjorie emerged first, phone already recording, narrating to her Facebook followers. We've just escaped a culinary catastrophe, and now we're at Brass Finch, Riverton's only real fine dining establishment. This is what Thanksgiving should be: professional service, proper ambiance, food prepared by people who actually know what they're doing. Tessa posed against the restaurant's brass and glass entrance, her ring light reflecting off the restored Victorian windows. Guys, this place is exclusive AF, like 3-month waiting list, but my mom knows people. She didn't mention those people were the online reservation system. Uncle Ray had switched to his good camera, panning across the facade. From disaster to 5-star dining, folks. This is why you always have a backup plan when amateurs cook. I'd parked across the street, watching from my Range Rover's tinted windows. They strutted into my restaurant like conquering heroes, ready to show me what real hospitality looked like. Liam glanced around nervously, probably wondering if I was coming. His text, "Where are you?" went unanswered. I waited 5 minutes, then made my entrance through the side door that led directly to the executive offices. The kitchen staff nodded silently as I passed. They all knew tonight was special. "They're seated in the main dining room, table 12, Elise reported, meeting me in my office. Marjorie already complained about not getting the window table and demanded to speak to the owner about the discriminatory seating policy. Perfect. She'll get her wish soon enough. Through the one-way glass that overlooked the dining room, I watched my husband's family perform their usual theater. The restaurant hummed with its typical Thanksgiving energy: couples sharing wine, families toasting gratitude, the soft clink of proper silverware on china. The tungsten Edison bulbs cast honey-colored light over everything, making even water glasses look romantic. Marjorie was lecturing Jordan about wine service, explaining that she knew the owner and deserved special consideration. Jordan maintained his composure beautifully, his smile never wavering as she insulted his knowledge of Burgundy versus Bordeaux. "Ma'am, our sommelier has 20 years of experience." Jordan offered diplomatically. "Experience doesn't mean competence," Marjorie shot back, loud enough for 3 tables to turn. "I've been drinking wine longer than you've been alive." Tessa was photographing everything: the bread service, the water glasses, other people's plates at nearby tables. Her flash disrupted a proposal at table 6. The gentleman shot her a look that could have curdled cream. #BrassFinch. #saved Thanksgiving. #my mom is a queen. She narrated while typing. Uncle Ray had set up his phone tripod on the table, blocking the server's access. "We're going live from the fanciest joint in town, showing you how the other half lives." Nora was already complaining about portion sizes. $40 for appetizers. They better be huge. At home, Ava tried to serve us these tiny portions like this is France or something. My phone buzzed. "Marco, they just ordered, demanding modifications on everything. Oysters fully cooked, foie gras, not too fatty. Caesar salad with regular lettuce, not that weird stuff." "Standard response," I typed back. "We don't modify signature dishes." Through the glass, I watched Marjorie's face redden as Jordan politely explained our no substitution policy for the tasting menu. "This is ridiculous," she declared. "Do you know how much we're spending here? Would you prefer the a la carte menu, ma'am?" "No, we want the tasting menu, just made properly. Get me your manager." Elise glided over, immaculate in her black suit. "Good evening, Mrs. Carter. I understand you have concerns." "Concerns your staff is being deliberately obtuse. We have simple requests. Our tasting menu is crafted precisely by our culinary team. Each dish is designed to—" "I don't need a lecture on food from someone who just manages a dining room." Marjorie cut her off. "Where's the owner? I want to speak to someone with actual authority." Elise's smile could have cut glass. "The owner will be available shortly. In the meantime, may I suggest you enjoy the experience as designed?" I moved to the wine vault, checking my appearance in the antique mirror. The portfolio lay exactly where planned. the documents inside arranged for maximum impact. The spotlight Tony had adjusted created a perfect theatrical pin spot on the leather folder. My phone showed 8:10 p.m. I could hear Marjorie's voice escalating from across the restaurant, now berating a busser for removing a bread plate too aggressively. Time to make my entrance. I stepped into the main dining room just as Marjorie stood up, her phone aimed at Jordan's face, recording his incompetence for her social media jury. "This is what passes for service at supposedly elite establishments," she announced to her camera. Behind her, Liam had his head in his hands. The other diners were staring, some recording the scene themselves. I caught Elise's eye and nodded. The show was about to begin. The appetizers arrived like small jewels on pristine white plates. Marjorie examined her oyster as if it might leap off the plate and attack. "This is raw," she announced, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "Completely raw. Are you trying to give us salmonella?" "Oysters are traditionally served raw, ma'am," Jordan explained patiently. "These are from Duxbury Bay, harvested this morning. I don't care if they're from the moon, cook them properly or take them back." "Perhaps the lady would prefer the seared scallops," Jordan suggested. "I ordered the tasting menu. Just make it correctly." She thrust her phone in his face. "What's your name? I'm documenting this incompetence." Jordan stepped back professionally. "Ma'am, I need to ask you to lower your camera. We have a policy against filming staff without consent." "Policy?" Marjorie laughed. "I'm a paying customer. I have every right to document terrible service." She turned to her live stream audience. "Can you believe this? They're trying to censor me now?" Uncle Ray had moved to get a better angle, standing on his chair to film over Jordan's shoulder. "This is getting spicy. Folks' fine dining drama, live and unfiltered." Tessa was harassing the sommelier, demanding to know why their wine was so small in the glass. "For $50, I expect a full pour, not this thimble. It's a tasting portion, designed to pair specifically with—" "I don't need a lecture. Just fill it up." The second course arrived foie gras with cherry gastrique. Marjorie poked it with her fork like it might explode. "This looks like cat food," she declared. "Expensive cat food." She flagged down a passing server, not even their server. "You there? Yes, you. Tell the kitchen to cook this properly. Sear it or something. And bring ketchup." "Ketchup?" The young server looked stunned. "Are you deaf, ketchup? Red sauce? Tomato? How hard is this job? Really?" I watched from my position near the wine vault as Jordan approached the table again, his composure admirably intact. "Mrs. Carter, I need to inform you that your behavior is violating our customer conduct policy. We require all guests to treat staff with respect and refrain from unauthorized recording." "Conduct policy." Marjorie stood up, her voice carrying across the now silent dining room. "I spend hundreds of dollars here and you're lecturing me about conduct." She turned her phone camera on Jordan again, zooming in on his face. "Everyone needs to see this brass finch treats paying customers like criminals." "Ma'am, please." "Don't you ma'am me. Where's your manager? Where's the owner? I want someone with actual authority." Elise appeared again, smooth as silk. "Mrs. Carter, I'm going to have to ask you once more to stop recording our staff." "Or what?" Marjorie challenged. "You'll kick out your best customers. We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone who violates our policies," Elise said calmly. The entire restaurant was watching now. Several other diners had their phones out, recording Marjorie's meltdown. Liam had shrunk so far into his chair he was practically under the table. The main course arrived perfectly pink duck breast with roasted vegetables. "This is raw!" Marjorie shrieked. "Completely raw. Look at this." She held up a slice to her camera. "They're serving us raw duck. This is a health code violation. The duck is cooked to medium, ma'am, which is the chef's recommended. I don't care what the chef recommends. I'm not eating raw bird. Take it back and cook it properly. Well done. Cooked through. Like normal people eat." Marco himself emerged from the kitchen, his chef's whites pristine. "Is there a problem with the duck?" "Are you the chef?" Marjorie demanded. This is unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. I want to speak to the owner. Now. The owner has been observing the situation, Marco said with a slight smile. She'll be with you momentarily. Marjorie snorted. Figures. Probably some trophy wife who inherited money and doesn't know anything about running a real restaurant. That's when Jordan played his card. Mrs. Carter, due to your continued violation of our policies regarding staff harassment and unauthorized recording, I'm implementing our zero-tolerance protocol. Bar service is now suspended for your table. You'll be served water and the food you've already ordered, but no additional alcohol or courses. What? Marjorie's shriek could have shattered crystal. You can't do that. Additionally, Jordan continued, pulling out his tablet, all items will be charged individually rather than as a tasting menu, and a 20% service charge will be added for policy violations. So, the dining room was absolutely silent except for Uncle Ray's commentary. Holy moly, folks! We got ourselves a Thanksgiving showdown. Marjorie looked apoplectic. I demand to speak to the owner immediately. This is discrimination. This is theft. This is my restaurant, I said, stepping forward into the light. The silence that followed could have suffocated flames. Every eye in the restaurant locked onto me as I walked toward table 12, my heels clicking against the reclaimed hardwood with metronomic precision. Good evening, I said, stopping at the perfect distance close enough to command attention, far enough to maintain authority. I'm Ava Carter, representative of Seaside Birch LLC, the company that owns Brass Finch and the entire North Coast Hospitality Group. Marjorie's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Behind her, Uncle Ray's phone clattered to the table. That's impossible, she whispered. I turned to Elise, who appeared with the leather portfolio. Would you please present the documentation? Elise opened the portfolio with theatrical precision, revealing the papers inside. Articles of incorporation for Seaside Birch LLC, showing Mrs. Ava Carter as managing member. Trademark registration for Brass Finch, business license, operating agreements for all North Coast hospitality properties. Additionally, I continued, my voice carrying clearly through the silent restaurant. Bank statements showing ownership, tax documents, and a notarized letter from our corporate attorney confirming my complete executive authority. I lifted the papers, holding them where the entire dining room could see. Would anyone like to examine these more closely, Jordan? Please have these documents witness-stamped by 3 members of our management team. Shh, Jordan, Marco, and Elise each signed and stamped the witness sections while Marjorie stood frozen, her face cycling through shades of red I'd never seen on a human before. You see, I said, settling into the authority I'd hidden for 5 years. I've owned this restaurant for 3 years. That chef you insisted was classically trained in Paris. I hired Marco from a Newark diner because he understood that great food isn't about pedigree, it's about passion and respect. I picked up Marjorie's abandoned wine glass, examining it against the light. This Burgundy you called pedestrian, I selected it personally from a small vineyard in Gavry-Chambertin. The owner's daughter is my friend. We met at a James Beard event, you know. Those awards you said I'd never understand. Liam had gone white. Ava, Oh, now you want to speak? I turned to him. Where was your voice an hour ago when your mother called my cooking a health hazard? I addressed the entire table, but really, I was speaking to the whole restaurant. For 5 years, I've listened to this family mock my cooking, dismiss my career, and treat me like a failure. Meanwhile, you've been eating my food 3 times a week through our catering division, our ghost kitchens, and this very restaurant, that holiday party you raved about last year. Marjorie. My menu, the boxed lunches at your country club, my recipes, the divine anniversary dinner you posted about last month. You were sitting at table 7, right there, in my restaurant. Tessa's phone shook in her hand as she tried to delete her stories. Too late, her followers were already screenshotting everything. Now, I said, pulling out the tablet Jordan handed me. Let's discuss tonight's violations. Recording staff without consent, that's a $500 penalty per incident. I count 17 incidents across your party. Harassment of service staff, 300 per violation. That's 12 incidents. Disrupting other diners, 200 per table affected. You disturbed 8 tables. I showed them the screen. Your current bill, including the individually priced tasting menu items, service charges, and policy violations, comes to $14,360. Marjorie finally found her voice. This is extortion. This is consequences, I corrected. But I'm not heartless. I'm waiving all violation fees on one condition. The entire restaurant seemed to lean in. Every penny of those fees, $8,700, will be donated to the Riverton Culinary Arts Scholarship Foundation. It provides training for young chefs who've been told they're not good enough, not worthy enough, not proper enough for this industry. I signaled to Elise, who produced a donation receipt printer. The donation will be made in the name of the Carter Family Thanksgiving Service. You'll receive a tax receipt. Of course. The printer buzzed, and I placed the receipt on their table. Your regular bill stands at $5,660. No fees, no penalties, just the cost of the education you received tonight. I looked directly at Marjorie. You wanted to show me what real dining looked like. Congratulations, you've just experienced it. Real dining includes respect for the food, for the staff, and for the craft, all things you lack. The spotlight from the wine vault caught the portfolio, making the golden seal on the ownership documents gleam. Around us, other diners began to clap slowly at first, then building to sustained applause. One more thing, I announced, raising my voice over the applause. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, every other table receives complimentary dessert tonight. The Carter table, per our zero-tolerance policy, does not. Marjorie's face had transcended red and achieved a shade of purple typically reserved for eggplants. Her phone, still recording, captured every second of her humiliation. "Happy Thanksgiving," I said, turning to walk away. "Your server will bring the check." Jordan placed the leather check folder on the table with surgical precision. The itemized bill gleamed under the restaurant's warm lighting, every course, every wine pairing, every single supplement they'd demanded, listed in unforgiving detail. "Your payment, Mrs. Carter," Jordan said with perfect professional courtesy. "We accept all major credit cards." Marjorie's hand trembled as she reached for her wallet. The entire restaurant watched in hushed fascination. Other diners had their phones out, but they were recording her now. Not my staff. "This is robbery," she hissed, slapping her American Express onto the folder. "This is accountability," I said from my position by the wine vault. "Something you taught me, actually." "Weren't you always saying that people need to face the consequences of their choices?" Uncle Ray had gone silent, his live stream capturing his own stunned expression. The comments were pouring in, not mocking my cooking anymore, but expressing shock at the plot twist. The daughter-in-law owns the restaurant dominated his feed. Tessa was frantically trying to delete her posts, but the internet is forever. Her followers were already creating memes from her earlier mockery, paired with the revelation. The hashtag #ThanksgivingHumble was trending before dessert service began. Around them, my actual guests were enjoying their complimentary desserts, my signature chocolate soufflé with gold leaf, the same one Marjorie had just been denied. The couple at table 6, whose proposal she'd disrupted, raised their champagne glasses in my direction. I nodded back. "Would anyone like boxes for the food you haven't touched?" Elise asked the Carter table sweetly. "Although, since you indicated it was unsafe to eat—" "We're leaving," Marjorie snapped, signing the receipt with such force she tore through the paper. As they stood to leave, I made one final announcement. "Oh, Marjorie, that zero-tolerance policy. It's not just for tonight. You and your party are permanently banned from all North Coast hospitality properties. That includes Brass Finch, our Portsmouth location, and all 6 of our ghost kitchen brands. You know, the ones that deliver to your neighborhood." Liam finally looked at me directly. "Ava, can we talk about—" "You can talk to my lawyer about the divorce," I said calmly. I'll have papers drawn up next week. 5 years of silence while your family degraded me. That ends tonight, too. Security appeared Jerome, 6'4" and impeccably dressed to escort them out. Not aggressively, just present, ensuring their departure was as public as their mockery had been. As they filed past the other diners, I heard fragments of conversation. Isn't that the woman who was live streaming earlier? She called the owner incompetent. Wait, she owns 3 restaurants. The daughter-in-law she was mocking. Marjorie's phone slipped from her hand near the door, clattering on the hardwood. When she bent to retrieve it, I saw her screen still recording. Comments flooding in. None of them kind. Her Facebook friends were not taking her side. Through the window, I watched them pile into their SUVs. No grand exit. No final words, just the deflated retreat of bullies who'd finally met consequences. Marco emerged from the kitchen, his team behind him. They burst into applause. Jordan's service team joined in. Even the dishwashers came out, clapping and cheering. Speech, someone called out. I raised my hand for quiet. Tonight, you all witnessed what this industry is really about. It's not about pedigree or pretension. It's about passion, skill, and above all, respect. Every single person in this building, from our newest busser to our executive chef, deserves dignity. Thank you for maintaining your professionalism tonight. Overtime and bonuses for everyone, and the kitchen drinks on me after service. The roar of approval could probably be heard in the parking lot where the Carters were pulling away. Elise handed me a champagne flute. To karma, to truth, I corrected, raising my glass. And to never hiding it again. My phone buzzed with the notification from our payment system. The receipt had processed. Below it, the donation confirmation $8,700 to the Riverton Culinary Arts Scholarship in the Carter family's name. Their humiliation would fund another chef's dreams. I looked around my restaurant, my accomplishment, my victory, and smiled. They'd wanted to teach me about real food and proper restaurants. Instead, they learned that the woman they'd dismissed as unworthy had been feeding their arrogance back to them, one perfectly prepared dish at a time. The gold leaf on the desserts caught the light, shimmering like small victories. Sweet, beautiful, and completely out of their reach. Thank you so much for listening to this story of sweet revenge and Thanksgiving justice. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If you enjoyed this tale of a dinner served with a side of truth, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever had a moment where you finally stood up to someone who underestimated you? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, remember, the best revenge is success, especially when it's been hiding in plain sight.